In 1943, as Nazi boots thundered through the cobblestoned alleys of occupied Rome, an Irish priest named Father Donnelly walked calmly through the city as if nothing were wrong, though his heart raced beneath his cassock. With the Gestapo hunting Jews door to door and vans screeching to a halt outside terrified households, he understood that silence was no longer an option. Every day he saw the fear in the eyes of families who once lived freely, now condemned for nothing more than their birth. So he began to weave a network of trust, using churches, abandoned wine cellars, secret passages beneath ancient buildings, and even the confessional booth, to hide the hunted. Though he appeared unremarkable to the roaming soldiers, he carried within his pockets tiny notes, each a lifeline to a soul desperate for safety, and each step he took was a step deeper into danger. At night, while Rome dimmed its lamps to avoid air raids, the priest gathered with a small circle of nuns, doctors, and students who volunteered to help strangers they had never met. They whispered plans over flickering candles, mapping safe routes, memorizing patrol schedules, and creating false identity documents forged from old baptismal records. The city was a maze now, not of streets but of secrets, and every safe house needed a password, every movement a reason, every knock on a door a risk. Father Donnelly assigned roles carefully. Some would transport children disguised as orphans, others would hide adults in monastery dormitories, and a few brave souls would guide the most endangered across the city under the cover of early morning fog. Each night ended with a prayer, not for themselves, but for the ones they had yet to reach. To the Gestapo, the Irish priest became a curious figure. His neutral laughter, harmless charm, and easy strolls made him almost invisible, a man considered too gentle to cause trouble. But behind his calm exterior burned a fierce resolve. He often walked into Gestapo-controlled zones carrying baskets of bread, pretending to deliver charity to the poor, slipping messages beneath loaves that instructed a family where to flee. More than once he stood only yards away from soldiers questioning residents, and he kept his head bowed, clutching rosary beads while silently memorizing the soldiers' shift patterns. He knew that one wrong glance, one stutter, one slip of the tongue could unravel everything he had built and condemn hundreds to death. Yet he kept going, believing that courage was quieter than the roar of tyranny. The network grew quickly, stretching through Rome like an underground river. Word spread among terrified Jewish families that an Irish priest was offering sanctuary, and whispered directions led them to safe convent doors. Mothers, trembling but determined, carried infants wrapped in blankets that muffled every potential cry. Fathers disguised themselves as laborers, groundskeepers, or members of the clergy, slipping into hidden chambers behind altars or beneath choir lofts. Father Donnelly visited these hiding places regularly, bringing food, news, and encouragement. Some had been separated from loved ones and clung to the priest's words as the only thread keeping their hope alive. Though his days were exhausting, he never allowed despair to enter his voice, because he understood that hope itself was a form of resistance. One evening, a message reached him that broke the stillness of their careful work. The Gestapo planned a massive citywide raid at dawn, targeting neighborhoods where many of the hidden families lived. Panic rippled through the network. If they stayed, they would be discovered. If they fled, they risked running straight into patrols. Father Donnelly gathered his closest collaborators and proposed an audacious plan, to move more than 100 people across the city in a single night and shelter them inside the largest basilica, where Nazi soldiers hesitated to search due to diplomatic restrictions. For hours, they moved silently, carrying bags, supporting the elderly, calming children. Their lanterns guided them through narrow alleys as the sound of distant German trucks reminded them how little time remained. Just before sunrise, the group reached the basilica, its massive doors looming like the gates of salvation. Inside, the cavernous chambers became temporary sanctuaries. Families huddled behind curtains and inside storage rooms that once held ceremonial robes. The priest instructed everyone to remain silent, no matter what happened outside. As the sun rose, Gestapo officers stormed nearby streets, pounding on doors, dragging frightened citizens outside, and shouting orders that echoed through the city. But within the basilica, the air remained hushed, charged with a fragile mixture of fear and faith. Father Donnelly stood near the entrance, pretending to pray aloud while listening to every sound beyond the heavy door. The hours that followed felt like an eternity. Twice, German officers approached the basilica, demanding entry to inspect its halls. At those critical moments, Father Donnelly stepped forward, presenting himself as a calm, dutiful clergyman. He offered them wine, spoke fluent German with a charming accent, and lamented the difficulties of wartime while steering them politely away from the inner chambers. The soldiers, exhausted and irritated, eventually left, convinced they had more urgent areas to search. After they marched away, the priest allowed himself a moment to breathe, though his hands still trembled slightly beneath his sleeves. That day marked a turning point. The network realized that their mission was no longer merely about hiding people, it was a war of wits, patience, and unshakable courage against a regime built on fear. Father Donnelly expanded the network further, coordinating with other priests, underground activists, and sympathetic diplomats. They smuggled medical supplies into hidden rooms, forged hundreds of documents that allowed families to pass as Italian nationals, and created a chain of secret shelters across the entire city. Many of the rescued individuals later said that the priest's presence alone was a shield, that his quiet determination gave them the strength to endure another day. Despite the constant threat of betrayal, the network survived until liberation. Rumors soon spread that the Irish priest had saved more than just a handful of people, but thousands, men, women, children, and entire extended families who walked into the future because he refused to stand aside. Even when the Allies neared Rome, the danger did not lessen, the Gestapo grew even more desperate, launching frantic hunts to leave their mark of terror before defeat. Yet Father Donnelly continued his missions, guiding the last vulnerable groups into hiding spots until the very moment Allied forces entered the city and the Nazi grip finally shattered. When the war ended, the survivors emerged from their hidden chambers, blinking in the sunlight, stunned that they were alive. Some embraced Father Donnelly with tears streaming down their faces, unable to find words large enough to express their gratitude. The priest simply said he had done what any human should do when darkness threatens the innocent. His name would later be honored, but he cared little for recognition. What mattered to him was that 6,500 souls hunted by hatred, still breathed, still dreamed, still lived. And though history would remember generals, armies, and battles, it would also quietly remember the Irish priest who fought evil not with weapons, but with courage, compassion, and the unwavering belief that saving one life meant saving a world.